Satu has 3 qualities. He is ugly, he is single, and most importantly, he is very stupid because he falls in love with his very sexy childhood crush and follows her to a very strange land where he becomes the Ring King, which by the way is their equivalent of Superman, and he embarks on a very interesting journey battling demons and marrying several princesses. This catastrophe of an anime starts with our stupid protagonist falling off a tree when he sights a bright light. It baffles me how this fall didn't kill him, and the boy gets up and heads in the direction of the light. Heaven knows I could never be this curious enough to want to see something I wasn't sure could end my life. But our protagonist is 2 things, stupid and a boy, so without fear in his eyes, he heads to the light to see this little girl coming out of the light with an old man. The girl asks for his name. The idiot tells her, Satu. The idiot in turn asks for her name, and she tells him her name is Hime no Kana. Hime then tells Satu to forget this incident and she'll become his friend. And just like that, fast forward 10 years later, we see a grown-up Hime waking up a grown-up Satu. How do I know she's grown, you ask? Have you seen those melons? Hime came over to Satu's place to make breakfast for him. Was this idiot living my dream or what? Apparently, ever since they met 10 years ago, they had become very good friends. They go on to blabber about more nonsense that wouldn't add $1 to my bank account, and then they head out to school. They meet Hime's granddad, the same dude we saw her pull up with from the light. On their way, Satu steals glances at Hime's goods. Oh, Satu, you sly frog. This makes him remember when he and Hime were younger and he was looking at the rings on her chest, and she told him she'll give one of the rings to the person she marries, and she teases him, asking him to marry her. She caught him. The girl literally caught him peeking at her watery balls of pleasure, and what did she do? She just smiled and continued on her way to school. Today is the last day of school before the summer holidays, and Hime is busy bragging about getting high marks while Satu and his loser friends are talking about how hot Hime is. And I kid you not, that girl's body is highly inflammable. The school day is over and Satu gets this weird text from Hime asking him to come over to the festival. And oh my Jesus, is Satu blushing right now? I take back everything I said about this guy. He's not an idiot. He is a super idiot. He rushes over to meet Hime and sees she is even wearing a yukata. This makes our boy erupt with even more excitement. So the law guys go on to have an amazing evening, like the couple they were obviously not. At this point, it was already too much for our boy. No, he could not contain it anymore. He wanted to confess his feelings to Hime, and God gave him the perfect opportunity with this fireworks show. Hime beats him to speak and says that she will be returning back to her home the next day. This throws Satu into unknown territories of confusion. He asks her where the place was, and she tells him it's far away. This ends their evening, and they walk back home where she thanks him for all the memories she was able to make here. Now, although Satu was an idiot, he didn't need anyone to tell him that something big was about to happen. Satu couldn't sleep. He pondered on everything that happened that day, and at that moment, this moment, that same bright light that knocked him out of that tree 10 years ago began to shine. He quickly rushed there and was shocked to find Hime walking into the light. She was happy to see him and told him goodbye as she walked in. No, no, no! This wasn't what Satu planned. He wasn't just going to watch the girl of his dreams walk out of his life forever. So he did what I wouldn't do, and bro walked into the light and walked into a wedding. Yes, you heard me right. Hime was getting married, and this dude just crashed the wedding. Before we knew what was happening, a beast from the abyss attacked. In the commotion, Hime kissed Satu. Before I could catch my breath even further, the Prince Hime was supposed to get married to tossed a sword to Satu, which he used to slay the beast before falling to the ground and passing out like the verified fool he is. Satu later woke up in the royal couple's bedroom with Hime, and she explained to him that she was supposed to marry that prince and give him the ring to make him the Ring King. But since she didn't know that prince and saw Satu's familiar face, she just went for him. Hime's granddad shows up and tells Satu he has to address the crowd that has come to greet the Ring King, and Satu does this in the most idiotic way ever. Later that night, Satu goes to take a shower and Hime ambushed him, and they share this weird moment and also discuss more rubbish that still won't add $1 to my bank account. Later we hear that the castle is being attacked by more beasts from the abyss, and Satu collects this spear, and it begins to glow. Turns out any weapon the Ring King wields becomes more powerful. Hime wraps it up with a kiss to give Satu the burst of energy he needs to finish off the beasts. A ceremony, a ring, and a kiss would normally leave you with a wife, but in Satu's case it came with a power-up. Naturally, Satu couldn't get off with just swinging once before getting sapped, but man took out 3 without losing any strength. Alabaster explained his boost being attributed to Hime strengthening their bond with the kiss, hence amplifying the ring's power. A hooded figure started hovering in the sky, noticed the ring, and moved closer to them. Alabaster started panicking whilst the Ring King was prepping for an attack. Fellas don't get kissed too often because you'd start getting ideas. Travis Scott himself would facepalm at what he did next, cause our man went charging in believing in the power of kisses. As you must have imagined, he got slapped into a wall with a gust of wind by the figure who Alabaster identified as a Knight of the Abyss King. Even the name should have sent terror through our guy. Thankfully, there weren't 2 kissed individuals, or the anime would have ended abruptly. Alabaster did the only logical thing, told them to run for their lives. Alabaster, being a capable mage, was able to pin down 2 of the knight's minions with his element manipulation. The Prince Mars eventually saved them and told them to escape by carriage. This lucky idiot Satu. He is told he has to marry 4 other princesses to access the other rings and become the true King of Rings. This guy is being prepped in the ways of Solomon, a role I'll be needing as soon as possible. Later at night, the 4 got an inn, and Alabaster explained the history of the Ring King, his duties, and how the other rings of light, fire, water, wind, and earth came to be, and how the princesses that were married to the Ring King passed the rings down to their generations. After seeing the bruises on Satu, Him threw a tantrum and ran outside. Who can ever understand women, huh? After chasing and telling her he loves her, baby girl decided to let him be her husband for real and access all her sweet parts. And after getting to the bedroom, awkwardness engulfed the room, and my man Satu took the initiative and pinned her to the bed, only to simp out with, "Our first time should be sweeter than this. This guy should be given a good beating for teasing us like this." They advanced in the morning to the land of elves where the Ring of Wind was passed down, and when they reached the entrance, there was a tempest wall hindering their entrance. A bear came out attacking them, and some elves saved them and led them to the palace to meet the princess, who turned out to be another dundering idiot. All she was concerned about was if they had done the deed as a married couple or not, and she made a run for it once she heard they had kissed. Where I come from, the girl gets a ring from the guy, but here it's the other way around. After the princess made a run for it, her brother, bringing the relatable sibling energy, gave a couple of insults in her absence, and the others relaxed. He pulled a Judas Iscariot on them and surrounded this world's messiah with guards and asked them to keep him in jail. The rest, however, should be treated as guests of the state. In jail, the intentions were brought to light. The Princess Nephritis' elder brother didn't want her to get married because she's way too young at 54 years. She hasn't left the nation yet, and he'd like to see her grow more as a young elf. Give this man a shield and an American costume, as he caps too much. I would literally die if I don't see a Captain America edit here. The funniest thing man said was, Satu should try waiting in jail for a little time, which is the sum total of 80 years. Then Nephritis would be mature enough to get married to a skeleton maybe. Later on, he tells a guard he doesn't care about the Abyss King or about any other nation. He just wants the power of the ring to keep protecting the kingdom. In jail, a big-titted girl comes through to question Satu about his motives and what he thinks he would gain from collecting the rings. As usual, our boy is a disappointment, as he says all he wants is to make Hime happy, not anything sweet like saving the world or banishing the Abyss King. The girl laughs at him and his answer and breaks him out of jail to the location of the Wind Ring, where it's discovered that the king and queen of the elves were petrified and using the power of the ring to safeguard the kingdom. We see the princess came to pray to them, explaining the presence of the Ring King and his motives. However, the jailbreaker turned out to be an elder of the elves that had her priorities straight. The princess passed out upon seeing Satu, which makes me wonder what else she'll see and pass out from. The elder elf took them to a library type of place and told Satu to win Nephritis' heart while shutting them in and leaving them alone. After waking up, the first idea she had was to puke on them both, which brought an opening for them to be naked after Satu washed their clothes. Where they got water from in a closed room, I will never know. They got talking, and Satu starts telling her about the world he came from and corrects her faulted thinking about everywhere ridden with monsters of all kinds. Men of culture, here's our moment. After hearing about Satu's world, she got so excited she clasped his hands and in the process left her covers on the ground, revealing a spicy dish for a king. A moment later, the prince came for Nephritis, commanding her to his side after a heated argument using the parent card on her. The elder saved Satu from being thrown in jail again, and he could move around freely this time. After 3 days in jail, the most notable thing to Hime was that a beautiful woman saved Satu. And he's on good terms with the princess as well, women, right? The elder elf educated them on how the elf kingdom became enveloped in a wall of wind. A princess meant to inherit the ring fell in love with an outsider, and the elves got scared of the ring being taken away by the outsider. Eventually, the outsider didn't show up anymore one day, and then the princess left, laying a curse on the kingdom saying the abyss would swallow them up. To counter the curse, Nefritis' parents, who inherited the ring, used the power of the ring to petrify themselves forever and protect the kingdom and her children, and enacted a promise from Nefritis never to leave the nation, which is the summary of why the kingdom is in this state currently. Seeing that the Wind Ring was not in the mood to be taken out of town, the group decided to let off getting the ring. After the four got moving, Prince Jade thought he achieved victory mode and savored for a split seconded with news of abyss monsters breaching the wind barrier. Among confusion and chaos, our four-man Justice League saw the creatures and decided to be the heroes of the Elf Kingdom. My man Satu took his first battle preparation by getting the Sleeping Beauty treatment, got kissed by his one true love, and went into battle. In the castle, the Knight of the Abyss King made its way into the temple to disrupt the magic enabling the wind barrier. The prince came upon it and tried to stop it, only to get smacked aside by the knight. As they say, unexpected moments birth unexpected results, as he eventually got saved by Satu and the gang. According to Satu, he thought he already got a dose of boost worthy of facing the knight, as he already made out with Hime beforehand. However, he thought wrong, as the knight played a game of ping pong with their bodies and hit them back and forth. Hime, however, realizing her kisses aren't powerful enough alone, sought out Nefritis to come help out and marry Satu. After a lot of begging and tear shedding, Hime convinced her to come through and help out with the fight. They both appeared on the battlefield with a large hammer and knocked down the petrified statues of Nefritis' parents, thus retrieving the rings. The princess slipped on the ring and gave Saitu one too, kissing him in the process. After clasping hands afterward, a beam of light eviscerated the creatures and rendered the knight useless. Saitu attacked to deliver the final blow, to which the knight used an air technique which Saitu deflected now that he can control wind. He was eventually able to destroy the knight with ease, and as you would expect from an idiot, he passed out afterward. King Saitu woke up to 4 big oranges hovering above his head before registering the faces of his wives, who were worried about him and the others in the room. A strange elf came in thanking him for saving the kingdom, and her identity was revealed to be the princess that cursed the kingdom initially but was later made into a Knight of the Abyss King with a dark ring. That's seriously giving some Sauron vibes. Luckily, Satu, our Legolas, was able to rescue her by destroying the ring when he fought the knight. Being sapped of power and energy, Nefritis, wanting to be a good wife, suggested they go take a dip in the spring in the palace with healing properties. In the spring, Hime apparently decided to go sap shopping, as she kept on piling cap upon cap about how she and Satu go to Pound Town every night. Unfortunately for her, the elf elder came in butt naked, asking them to show her exactly how they do it, and she wanted to see how a human from another world makes it clap. Again, our boy Satu disappoints as he backs down and misses out on a possible threesome. Later on, we see that the elf princess whose lover left is given information about her ex, who is now living peacefully in another land far away according to Alabaster. Nefritis informs her brother that she will be leaving with Satu to perform her duty as his wife. And the elder turns out to be the first ring princess of the original Ring King, and Alabaster is also the lover of the princess that cursed the kingdom. They all put their hopes on Satu to save the world now. Jealousy takes many forms, apparently even dreams, so to speak. After acting a whole episode of the Real Housewives of Anime, Hime sees herself being swapped out by Nefritis when it was time for the main event and was given a VIP ticket to it. As my boy Satu was about to go into the entrance, Hime woke up, happy it was just a dream, only to see Satu serving her a second bowl of food and being pampered by Satu in the process. She gave the "what about me" call, only to be given a "not today" response, which triggered her jealousy mechanism. She got caught and then ran away, only to be caught by Satu. They then saw a moving town which was explained by Alabaster to be the Land of Fire, where the Ring of Fire and its princess reside. They're described as cat people and are fierce warriors who later could be used as mercenaries. They're able to get in by being tossed later from the top of the city. Saitu tries to help Nefritis as she's scared of heights, but Hime steps in and helps instead out of jealousy. This presents another opportunity for a splendid view for Satu and the men of culture. Cheers! The king and him surely wanted to ring her right there with what he saw underneath. After exploring for a while, the princesses get separated from the group and the guys discover a secret about the town. The women are attracted to strength and fall only for strong men. Delusion kicks into Satu's head, and he thinks all the chicks would fall dead looking at him as he must be oozing strength. I kid you not, his bubble wasn't just burst but shattered as the women ignore him and go straight for the other prince, even making a remark that he was scrawny as hell. The girls are seen sharing a snack and reminiscing about the time they've been together, and Nefritis notes that she's conscious that Hime is jealous, which Hime doesn't argue about. The others catch up to them at the arena to meet the princess, who turned out to be the anime version of Xena the warrior princess, beautiful and sexy with killer moves. Satu tried to challenge her for her hand and didn't even last 3 seconds. Guess she was too hot to handle after all. Man was so embarrassed he started training with the other prince to become Batman, since only he can subdue Catwoman. After training for a while, the guys are treated to a meal where the waiter explains that not a single person has been able to best the princess in the city, and her strength is unmatched in the whole generation. He goes on to watch another person fight the princess for her hand and get beat in a single swipe. He's later comforted by Hime, who rests his head on his lap and consoles him, saying he's perfect the way he is at the moment. They're all invited to a spa of some sorts and are to get tended. Satu is tended by a huge man instead of a beautiful woman. Once he's done, the princess comes in and requests a scrub from him personally, takes off her clothes, and what she showed would have given Jiraiya an eternity of nosebleeding. After massaging her butt cheeks for a while, the princess gives him a proposal to throw the fight next time he challenges her, as she senses something different about him and would like to serve him as the ring princess body and soul. Instead of agreeing to her terms, his hero ego came out and decided to fight her fair and square and would like to defeat her when next they meet, which she smiles to and walks away. I didn't know I could ever be jealous of an anime character, but Seitu makes it a first. As Satu woke up, he found Nefritis under his bedsheets and his eyes fixed on her cleavage. Then she goes ahead to discuss his fight with the princess, trying to convince him that he can win if he uses the power of the rings. Nefritis was all over Satu, trying to get him to, make babies. But she fails because Satu keeps standing on business. He resumes his sparring, and Blondie also tells him that it would be easy for him to win if he uses the rings, but he refuses and continues sparring. Meanwhile, the cat ladies were talking about how the Granart was so fond of him that she surrendered her body to him, and Hime that was walking by overheard them and thought it was in a sexual way, but it wasn't. She goes on to feel sad about it and at the same time wishes it was her. Satu faced the princess again in efforts for her to acknowledge him, but before they could begin, a knight that picked up a black ring obtains the power of the Abyss King, then goes on to attack Satu, who was saved by the princess, and then the knight summons abyss monsters. The cat people evacuate the civilians in the arena while Granart proceeds to attack the knight, but her sword melts due to the flames surrounding him. Satu tries to attack but gets knocked down with one punch. Guess we could call him the reverse. One Punch Man after this, play some form of screeching sound, then follow it with, "I'm sorry, it sounded way funnier in my head." Granart tells him to leave the fight to her, that she protected the ancient Ring King and would also protect him even though he's weak, but of course as a man he wouldn't just sit there and watch a woman protect him, so he decides to take out the flames with the ring powers and have Granart attack the knight. Then he delivers the final blow by knocking the knight out, making the black ring come off his finger. Granart acknowledges his skills and accepts to be his wife, but Satu disagrees and says he will make her acknowledge him the way he wants, so he challenges her again and she accepts. Somebody tell me what is the wrong with this idiot? The fight begins and Granart strikes first, hitting Satu. Hime starts to think Satu is stupid for not accepting the ring since Granart already acknowledged him. Then Nefriti tells her to cheer for Satu because he's probably doing it for her. She decides to cheer Satu up by promising to have sex with him if he wins Granart, thinking that would work, and surprisingly it did. Satu starts to hear the ring speak to him, telling him that it'll help him defeat Granart by reading her movement, which worked out well, what men would do to get laid. After he wins, Granart stares at him and dashes to give him a very sumptuous kiss and said no one has ever defeated her, then goes on to offer her sexy body to him, but the dumbass refused even after seeing such voluminous melons and sexy curves, all because he's engaged to Hime. So, Hime and Satu are together in the room with just a towel on, but Hime is pretty shy even though they're married. Satu holds her and pins her to the bed. She starts moaning and tells him to go on even though he hasn't done anything. She sees that he's fallen asleep with her melons in his hand and her nipples very close to her mouth. I hate this boy so much. It was then she remembered that the power of the rings made him very exhausted, so she just kisses him on his forehead and falls asleep too. The next morning, Satu wakes up next to him and feels shy, thinking he had sex with her. Then Nefritis comes from under the bedsheet and said they didn't do anything, but she's next, and Granart pops up saying she's after her. It's like they all lined up to have a piece of the Ring King. Granart organizes a banquet where she addresses the people of Nidakita, saying they will all fight alongside the Ring King. Hime goes on to gulp down a cup of wine and collapses. Satu had to carry her to the room where she tells him that she would do anything he says as a reward for his hard work, and as horny as Satu is, he says he wants to fondle her melons. While fondling, they see Nefritis and Granart, who then pounce on him and start to caress him, and she gets knocked out by Hime and Nefritis. Like the Avatar has to travel the world to master all 4 elements, Satu must travel this world to marry several wives. As the group heads out, they move to Massa, the land of water, where a maiden in a veil comes up to Satu, saying she's a big fan, then hands him a flower and kisses him. The maiden suddenly starts laughing and says he is not very cautious, which is a very polite way of telling the stupid boy that he is stupid, dramatic pause, that she is Saphir Massa, the maiden of the Ring of Water, and she just made him her husband, which is totally legal. Okay, wait, what? So, since Satu is now married to Saphir, technically he's now the king of the land of water, so he has to use his powers to rule the nation or else it will perish. In the midst of it all, a large man with guards comes to take Saphir back to the palace. She then tells the man that she's now married to Satu, and he decides to take them all to the palace with him. On their way to the palace, they observe the streets of the land from the carriage and notice it's filled with guards, which are there to fight any abyss monster that appears. Satu then asks about the large man from earlier, and the mage tells him that's the undefeated General Slundergisaras, Mars's older brother. He's the one that enforces the laws of the Empire, which Saphir thinks is an occupying force under the pretext of protecting them from the abyss monsters. They arrive at the palace and feel an evil aura coming from a monster's attack nearby. Granart senses something and warns Satu just before a monster appears and attacks him. He uses the power of the ring to block the attack and take down the monster in an instant. At the palace, they meet the king, Saphir's father, and the palace oracle, Vixen. Vixen's plan was to lock her up so she wouldn't hand over the ring to Satu. However, her father is bothered that she had handed over the ring just as Vixen predicted, and now a great evil will befall the nation. He wishes Satu had never come. Then he starts coughing due to his deteriorating health, and Vixen takes him away to relax. Saphir tells Satu that her father was once a wise king before he started listening to that woman. Well, what do you expect from someone whose name is Vixen? As the group walks along the halls of the palace, they meet Saphir's twin sister Saphira, who's mad at Saphir for not telling her before she married Satu that he looks so plain and she could have gone for a more handsome-looking man. Granart tries to defend him, but in the process gives him a low blow by saying she knows he doesn't seem reliable as a warrior. Nefritis also gives him one by saying she can't comment on his looks, only Hime defends him by saying he's cool. All these wives and none found you attractive? Somebody shoot me in the head. Saphir then tells her sister that she doesn't need to worry about marrying the Ring King anymore. Then Mars cuts them off and jumps to tell Saphira that he knows he's giving a stupid excuse but hasn't forgotten his promise to her. But Saphira says she doesn't want to hear his voice and runs away, but Mars runs after her. Saphir then tells the group that Mars has sworn his love to Saphira and proceeds to tell them the relationship between their two kingdoms, Massa and Gisaris. Mars was sent on a mission from his kingdom to foster a friendship between their nations closer by making Princess Saphira fall in love with him. He also had a secret mission to give his nation information about the things happening in Massa, but he never did that because of his love for Saphira, which made his emperor call him back and order him to become the Ring King, which broke Saphira's heart. She was sad that Mars couldn't become the Ring King. It was during that period Vixen came and started making predictions which found her a place beside the stupid king. Honestly, how many stupid people were there in this anime? Vixen was mad at Saphir, so she ordered assassins to kill Satu and retrieve the rings. They tried to attack Satu in his sleep, but were ambushed by his wife Granart. They also tried in the morning, but were stopped by the mage's magic. Then, they all head to sunbathe in the garden, with the princesses dressed up in their bikinis showing off their sumptuous chest balls. Granart takes the opportunity to try and make babies with Satu, but gets interrupted by Hime, who says she's first in line. Apparently, there's an order to which they get to have a piece of Satu. As Mars walks in the night, he meets Vixen, who tells him that in 3 days, monsters will attack Massa and to use the opportunity to steal the rings as ordered by the Imperial Majesty. If there was one thing I was sure Vixen excelled at, it was turning the head of Mars. She tells him Satu shouldn't be in that world and proceeds to give him this weird-looking sword that she claims is powerful enough to go against the Ring King. She also tells him she'll be waiting for him at the Empire. As he walks around, he remembers how his father called him a failure for not even being able to become the Ring King. But in all honesty, it wasn't his fault. Nobody sent Satu to crash their wedding with his ugly face. I felt bad for Marseille. He sees Saphira bathing and approaches her, but she runs away from him again, and this plunges him into despair, and it would seem as though the sword took over. Later, we see everyone having a meeting and they're about to fight. So Hima hurriedly kisses her husband, and he blushes like the massive idiot he is. His other wives also want to kiss him, and this makes all the females engage in a little verbal squabble, and this angers Mars even more. Suddenly, it is reported to the general that one of the beasts has gone past them to the palace. The commander tells them the palace will be safe, instead they should keep holding the line here. The beast decides to surface its ugly head now, and Satu is getting ready to fight it, but it's at this point that the sword takes over Mars, and he lunges at Satu, who manages to dodge. The old man faced the beast while Satu tried to figure out what was wrong with the prince. It was turning into a real battle, and Satu knew his sword skills were horrible in comparison to the prince. And that was when Satu realized that Mars was holding back. Satu decided not to defend against Mars's next strike, and surprisingly Mars stopped himself just before the blade could do serious damage, although he wounded Satu. He then asks Satu to cut him down, saying he has nothing to live for and he is worthless, but Satu thinks otherwise and tells him. Satu tells Mars he is the reason he has been able to survive long enough in this place. So they go on to do some more blabbering, and Satu broke the spell, and that's when Vixen showed up and Princess napped Saphira, telling Mars to back down. I don't know how these guys think in this anime, but Mars just kind of decided this was the perfect time to propose to Saphira, and he did, and then Vixen transformed into this even more ugly beast, and then Saphira kissed Satu, and then turned into this water dragon thingy that ate up Vixen. So is it safe to say she ate? Dramatic pause or screeching sound effect. Everywhere was chill once again. Saphira's father had come back to his senses. Mars finally asked for Saphira's hand in marriage, and it was given to him. We later see Vixen return to the Emperor, who kills her immediately. She tries to seduce him and get him to work with her again. The bloody Emperor, no time for nonsense. 1 is company, 2 is nice, 4 is a bloody harem. Satu, the Solomon incarnate, with different species of women at this point, has gotten 4 rings and 4 princesses, who are now struggling for who will sleep with him on his bed. The pervert in him is jubilating at this position he is in, while the loyal husband in him is fighting for dominance to satisfy Hime and not hurt her feelings. So he felt a need to be a simp once again and confess his undying loyalty to her in front of others, saying she's the #1 always. The rest didn't even bat an eyelid and just wanted a piece of him. The cat, as usual, giving in to her desires, pounced on him whilst the rest assumed positions on him. Hima, however, didn't want a part of the fun and left in jealousy. It all turned out to be a dream to which he woke up with 4 half-naked girls on him. This man is living everyone's dream and fantasy for God's sake. He then proposed to take Hima out for the rest of the day, which the rest agreed to. However, there seems to be another plan set in motion underground. Hime seems ready to go into the zone as she scrubbed every part of her body while fantasizing about Satu, connecting his charger into her socket. Alabaster later is seen asking Satu to do the deed, his instructions. Get a room and don't come back tonight. Every road seems to lead to Combustion Town tonight. As expected, the agreement between the rest was a fluke, as they all were later seen tailing them all about town. Sapphire, however, seems uninterested in tailing them as she's more interested in other things, but the others pull her along with them. The two get to eat and move towards a park where Sapphire tells the rest that if 2 lovers make out there, they'll be united for life. Turns out it was just a rumor after all. Hime and Satu try kissing, but like high schoolers, they get awkward again, and Satu starts some talk about it being too public. When will this guy ever be bold and take what he needs? The rest get bored immediately after and decide to go home, since nothing will ever happen at this rate. At the end of the day, they get ice cream and talk about their meeting and how things have been in this world. The date ends and they head back to the palace. Hime, however, tells tells Satu to try showing the rest some affection as well, since they're performing their duties as the ring princesses as well, to which he responds that she's the only one for him forever, kisses her, and things get awkward again. But Hime stops him and says she doesn't want to go home. They start a barrage of thoughts in their minds, and further awkwardness ensues. At the end of it all, they sadly go back to the palace. The next morning, the group decides to leave the Land of Water, and the princess teases them that she can't leave her home as she's still a child. However, her sister enacts a promise from her to protect Mars with the power of the ring during their journeys. They leave for the Land of Earth, which is the capital of dwarves who might be extinct for all they know, as they don't like making contact with the outside world at all. Saphir explains that they did follow the Ring King and fought bravely under his banner and lost a lot of people to the war. And after the war ended, they shut themselves off from the world without a trace to be found. The group reached the mountain that separates the home of the dwarves from the plains, and they hereby continue on foot. It took me a moment to remember that all these females were princesses and one ugly boy had them all to himself. During the descent through the mountains, everyone is warned to try their best to gain a good foothold, else they slip and share the same fate as the monsters and creatures that died from the great battle during the war between the Ring King and the King of the Abyss. Alabaster explained that the mountains were a great battle spot during this period, and a lot of deaths were recorded. Saphir discovers during this time that the rest of the princesses can't use magic like her, and she becomes astounded and disappointed at the same time. Night hits, and they all camp. Satu expresses his thoughts on the rings, as he doesn't really feel they're so important while people are trying their best to defeat the Abyss King without them anyway. Alabaster explained to him that like every modern time, everything would be watered down, and the power of the Abyss King isn't anything to be joking about. When he does escape his seal, which he will, then the world would be in turmoil and chaos. The next morning, after some climbing, they arrive in the lost city of the dwarves, and it lives up to its name. As it's more than lost, everything and everywhere is broken or destroyed. Saphir doesn't want to go searching around aimlessly. She's offered a ride on the back by the cat princess, to which she gets flustered and refuses. They later make their way into a throne room where some robot-looking things were laying down. They turned out to be creations of the dwarves used long ago against the Abyss King, and they can't move or be powered without magic. Suddenly, one of them came up and attacked Satu. My boy kicked into Superman mode and acted like Stephen Wolf attacked. He hit the creature with his sword and knocked it down. It got right up again, and a dark ring was found on its hand. Who knew robots had emotions, as it started whining about how the dwarves were the only ones to be extinct from the war that was fought, used an earth technique to trap Satu, and engaged him in battle. The power of smiling came through again as he broke through the technique just by thinking about protecting Hime. After breaking out, he got his power up by kissing Hime and destroyed the robot creature. All the dark rings everywhere disappeared at that exact moment and went to an unknown place, and Abyss creatures were summoned in a lot of numbers. The Abyss King has finally been resurrected like Jesus Christ on Easter morning, and the rings were still incomplete. More monsters kept streaming in, and Alabaster decided to make a final stand by sending Satu and the others away while closing the gate forever. Mars moved to protect him whilst the others got sent away. Everyone is now in Satu's world, and I'm still mad at him for enjoying life too much. Satu takes them to a boutique to try on new clothes so they can blend in with the environment, but they still seem to stand out because of, well, let's just say the cat ears, elf ears, and horns on their heads weren't too normal. After that, they go to a diner to have lunch and discuss what to do about the situation. Saphir tells them that if they could find a spot that's dense with magic, then they're sure to return. After lunch, they headed to a bathhouse to have a soak, and that's where Granart once again brings up the topic of making babies with Satu and then confronts him about her relationship with Satu since they're back in the human world. They all end up going home after a rough day. Granart, Nephritis, and Saphir stayed in Hime's room while she stayed in Satu's room. Satu asks about the money she used to pay for the clothes and food. She said her grandfather left a note for her in her room stating the inheritance he left for her. Satu and Hime return back to school. Nephritis starts going to the living to know more about Earth. Granart makes new cat friends, and Saphir seems to always be lost in thought. By nightfall, Satu sneaks into the forest to try and find a way back, but Hime sees him and tells him to stop searching for a way back and find happiness with her on Earth. I remember the popular quote, "There is no happiness for me in this world." That's probably how our idiot is feeling right now. She then proceeds to hug him, but he holds her back, and suddenly a bright light shines from the shrine. A woman, Amber Idanokan. Why does this name sound Nigerian? The protector of the Ring of Earth, comes out of the shrine and explains how she got created by the last of the dwarves who died long ago. She tries to bind with Satu, but is stopped by the jealous Jaime, who tells her that Arnulus is done for and the Abyss King has returned. Amber, disappointed, tells them to let her know when they changed their mind and went back to the shrine. At home, Granart complains about Satu not spending enough time with them as their husband. It's either that, or she just wants to go to Pound Town with Satu. Saphir asks Satu why he was with Hime outside late at night, and as he was about to answer, Hime interrupts and says they went to the store for a bit. Satu asks Jaime why she doesn't want to tell them about Amber, and she asks if he can truly defeat the Abyss King if he gets all 5 rings, that they should just find happiness on Earth. Unknowingly to them, Granart was listening. The following morning on their way to school, Satu sees Amber in the bush. She was watching over him because that's her duty. She goes with him to the market in the evening and also to the shrine in the light when she tells him that once they bind, she would gain her powers and be able to take him to Arnulus. Satu keeps thinking of what Amber said when suddenly she walks up to him and asks if he wants to return to Arnulus. His answer was yes, but he keeps doubting if he can actually defeat the Abyss King like Hime said. Amber explains to him that he can seal the Abyss King with the absolute power of the rings. She tells him that he's the reason she was created and will watch over him till he dies. All the ring princesses were born for the Ring King. Satu agrees to bind with her and take the ring. Finally, he has all the rings. When Satu gets home, he sees Hime crying. She then jumps to him and cuddles him. She said she was crying because she remembered her grandpapa, poor thing. Hime sees the 5th ring in his hand and asks why he accepted it. Satu tells her that they're going back to Arnulus, but she starts crying, saying she doesn't want to go, but he reminds her about how much the ring meant to her before, and that nothing's gonna go wrong because he'll always be with her. Jaime is happy and tells Satu it's time to fulfill her promise of, you know. As Satu fondled her melons and was about to kiss her, Amber bursts in with a bright light at the worst time possible. Somebody put a gun in my hand, let me leave 2.5 bullets in this female. She says she can only use the transportation spell once. Granart bursts into the room carrying Saphir and Nephritis and explains that she understands why Hime doesn't want to go back, while Saphir sheds tears of joy because she's so happy to return home. This is it. The end was coming closer and closer. The group gets back to Arnulus, and it looks like a wasteland filled with dead Imperial soldiers and monsters who fought there like ants. All of a sudden, Granart sees the Imperial soldiers from a distance engaging in combat with monsters, and Saitu's rings light up, sensing the dark aura of the Abyss King. The Abyss King is so strong that arrows from the Imperial guards didn't get to him before burning. Now that's how hot my next girlfriend should be. And he took down a number of soldiers with only one swing of his hand. Jesus! Who was this guy? Amber tells Satu that he now has a chance to face the Abyss King. Before he goes, the princesses come up to him and bid him well. Granart gives him a peck while Hime gave him a sloppy kiss right before battle, and boy, that kiss was so hot. Satu definitely got a boner. Satu jumps into the battlefield, wiping out the monsters, and stands face to face with the Abyss King. He swings his sword, which the Abyss King blocks, and then the 5 rings combine together to make one ring, and Satu overflows with energy. He then attacks the Abyss King with his sword, slashing him and releasing a huge blast of energy around. Finally, he defeated the Abyss King. Dramatic pause, or did he? They're all surprised to see that the Abyss King didn't die after being slashed by Satu. The Abyss King lifts Satu, who is already weak from using the power of the ring and can't move, and tries to kill him. Then, Granart jumps in to save Satu with Nephritis and Hime there to break his fall. The Abyss King summons his monsters to fight the ring princesses. In the midst of it all, Satu passes out and starts having different visions of him waking up next to Hime and getting married, him watching the sunset at his school, and getting attacked by a black ring beast. And I just cannot believe our boy is seeing the woman of his dreams in his dream that he is dreaming in the middle of a godforsaken fight. Somebody better calm me the flip down. He finally wakes up on a bird in the sky and sees Alabaster. He saved them from the Abyss King and his monsters just in time before they got killed. Satu then asks the Mage of Mars if he's alive too, and the mage says they were saved by Ramsa. She has been watching over Alabaster and couldn't sit still when he was in danger because apparently she's in love with him. Even though Satu couldn't defeat the Abyss King, his attack had a huge effect on him, thereby weakening him compared to the arrows of the Imperial guards that couldn't even touch him, and now he had also retreated with his monsters for now. Granart asks the mage how the situation is, and he tells them that shortly after they left, the Abyss King and his monsters started the invasion, and all the kingdoms spread out to fight them, but their numbers keep increasing, but they didn't give up, and he's glad they're all back. It begins to dawn, the Ring King returns, along with all the princesses. As they enter the kingdom, the people see them, and a little girl runs up to Satu and tells him that she hasn't been able to go out because of the monsters around. He tells her not to worry, that he'll save the world. The mage explained that the reason he couldn't defeat the Abyss King was because of the black rings he wore. No one knew anything about it. Even Amber confirmed that the dwarves knew nothing about it. The former Ring King defeated the Abyss King regardless, but they don't know how much power he used, so Satu has to train more to draw out power from the rings, which means Satu needs to strengthen his bond with the ring princesses, and Granart says baby making is an option. The best option if you ask me, and that makes him jealous again. Those two should just bang already. I'm tired of all the sexual tension. Mars rushes down to meet them as soon as he heard the news of their return. The mage tells them that in order to draw out power from the ring, they need the strength and will, so the princesses need to undergo training befitting for the wife of the Ring King. Wife training. Night falls and a maid escorts Satu to his room where the princesses are waiting for him. As he opens the door, he's starstruck by the sight of all the princesses on the bed wearing lingerie, and Granart tells him to choose one of them. Of course, he can choose all of them at once. Believe me when I say a few tears were shed because of the beauty of this episode. The next morning, Hima takes flowers to her parents' grave, and the mage tells her that he summoned something to help with her magic training. Morion, Hima's sister. I really don't understand how we went 12 complete episodes into this anime before finding out Hima has a sister. I also really don't know if I should be angry or happy with this ending, but if there's one thing I do know, it's that I'll see you in the next recap.